Hello and welcome to the 7th episode of Beyond the Present podcast. My name is Animal and I'm here joined by Poujix live from Canada. My man, buddy, how's it going?
Everything's great, guys. Nice to be here.
Fabulous. And of course, I'm also joined live by Sinix. Hey, my man, how's it going?
Hey there, thanks for having me.
Bravo. So today's topic actually is about comparing justice with equality. So first yourself, Poujix. Let's define both concepts because I think there's a lot of misunderstandings surrounding both topics. So how do you define justice and how do you define equality?
Right. This is a very good question. Very good topic. I love it. As you mentioned, this is very controversial and sometimes it's mistaken a lot. I mean, equality it literally means everything is equal. So everybody has the same amount of everything, which sounds good, but not really, because if you're doing more, then why shouldn't you have more, right? So this is the difference when justice comes in. Justice, in my opinion, is a set of guidelines that helps you to be fair, to have fairness, meaning that if you worked hard, you get good results. If you didn't work hard, you don't get good results. That's the idea, basically.
You mentioned fairness, but here's the problem with the modern societies these days. The very term fairness implies that there should not be super rich and super poor. There should not be people who are of higher means and those who are of lower means and whatnot. So the word fairness, unfortunately, is now very, very much misunderstood, and people don't understand exactly what it means.
Right.
So from your perspective, fairness means the ones who work harder should get better results, and the ones who work less should not.
Yeah, anything that is proportional. Again, you work hard, you get results. You don't, you don't.
Interesting.
Simple.
Very well. Let me just move on to Sinix here. So, Sinix, how do you define justice and how do you define equality?
Well, I think what Jack said is absolutely right. And, equality means that everyone's the same. Everyone is actually supposed to get the same results. But justice is when you are actually considering unique cases uniquely. So you've got to think of fairness when you're talking about justice. It's not that you say that everyone's the same. It's unlike equality here, it's all proportional, as Jack said.
That's right. Very well. So it is all true that ultimately we want to live in societies where there is justice, because that's, from my perspective, the real definition of fairness. But my biggest issue right now is the fact that a lot of people around the world cannot understand exactly what it means to live in societies that are just. And instead, most people prefer to live in societies with egalitarianism or with equality and whatnot. So here's a question, Poujix, from your perspective. I mean, think about our economies.
Ask your question.
For sure. Go ahead. What's the question?
Yeah, I got something to say. I'm against this notion that, some people believe that the harder you work, actually, the better results you get. I think it's not true. If that was true, then construction workers would have been, the richest people in the world, because they're working harder than, most of the people. But on the other hand, there are those who work actually less hard and they get better results.
Obviously, that's when the smart work also comes in. So it's not just about hard work, it's also smart work. And it's not just about the effort that you make. I mean, you can make a lot of effort at the wrong stuff and you get nothing. So we're talking about, an approach towards basically getting results. So yes, you can be literally working from morning to night every single day without any break. But if you're doing the wrong stuff, then you won't get anywhere, obviously. So in this case, getting results itself requires us to direct our attention and effort towards something meaningful and something that actually gets results. But right now, my question is this. It's about equality. Do we have such thing as equality in nature or even in the societies? I mean, can we have equal societies with equality where equality is actually commonplace?
Oh, yeah, absolutely not. I mean, you mentioned nature. There's nothing equal about nature. Look at it. Like, whoever hunts the best, if the prey gets away, he gets away. She gets away. She gets to live. If the hunter hunts, he gets to eat. She gets to eat. So that's the point. The point is that in nature, there's no equality. No, absolutely not. That's there is balance, of course, but that also is very mistaken with equality. If there is an unbalance, if there is a disproportion between species, some will starve or some will basically be balanced. But it doesn't mean they're equal numbers. It means they're proportional.
Interesting. So next, what do you think?
You know, as dictionary says, equality is the state of being equal, especially in status, rights, or opportunities. And it's crystal clear that this is not what we are experiencing in this world. You know, the nature doesn't work that way.
Exactly.
There is no equality. Yeah.
Fantastic. But of course, let's be honest, guys, we are saying this right now, but I'm pretty sure there are a lot of activists out there who will disagree with us and say, you know what, you guys are just I just don't agree with you guys. Because the fact of the matter is that equality does not exist in nature, and it doesn't exist in our societies. However, there are governments who are doing this. For example, let's talk about socialism right now, which is rampant in all across Europe. So, Poujix, what do you think about the idea of, for example, a society where the richer you are, the more you're taxed, and your money goes to helping the poor, and the poorer you are, the less taxes you pay, and the more benefits you receive from the government. So do you think this is a just system?
When it comes to socialism and helping the lower class people, you know, I'm all for helping people who have not had the opportunity. Give them opportunity to make something of themselves. But then if they're not making something of themselves, I don't see why we should keep giving them those opportunities. Somebody came out to me and said there's some basic necessities like home. I was like, no, let's say like 10,000 years ago, all we needed was a cave. And even before that, we even didn't have particularly that. So exactly. The only thing that is absolutely necessary is for you to live for immediate need is oxygen, which nobody controls, thankfully, for now. At least
exactly. We don't have to pay for oxygen, fortunately. That's good.
Yeah. And there's a reason for that, because that's the very thing that you cannot live without for more than a few minutes, depending on who you are, how much you can hold your breath, basically. But then my point of view here is that, no, I think for a very lazy person, yeah, socialism is a very good thing, because then they don't have to do anything and then live by. But for an ambitious person, that's not a good thing. And if we want to make progress, we have to be ambitious. And if we are in a completely socialist, I'm talking about the extreme end of it, society, then we cannot properly progress.
Exactly.
All of the progress comes out of this ambition that humanity in nature has. Some don't, but majority of the human beings do have ambitions and want to achieve more. But they also want security. So you have to find a balance, I suppose.
And you something very nice, and I just remembered how useless most charities are, because most charities are about giving people things like food and money and these things. And that's so, from my perspective, so useless, because ultimately, I think it was Jesus who said that or something, like if you give a man fish, he'll eat for a night, but if you teach this man how to fish, he'll eat for life. Right. I really believe that any form of charity other than education and information is, from my perspective, a crime. Let me explain why that's the case. You see, somebody right now is poor, right? Now, I want to do charity. I want to help these people. I think the only right way to help these people is to teach them how to become happy and successful. That's the only real charity. But if I give these guys money, then I am actually I'm committing a crime, because I'm making this person addicted to literally asking around for money from other people. Because if you do something, that's the way the human brain is wired. If you do something and you're rewarded for it, you'll keep doing it. It's human nature. And if you do something and you do not receive rewards, otherwise you get punished for it, you have a tendency of not repeating the behavior again. With the same token, here's what's wrong, absolutely wrong with charity in form of money, gifts, food and whatnot. This is complete BS, and I'm so against it for this reason. Because this can only promote more people with poor mindset, more lazy people who don't want to add value to society and who just move around and ask for money, ask for handouts, ask for charity. Because of this, the only form of charity that I think is right is education, which I believe should be made free from my perspective. That's what I personally believe in. Education, and not just in terms of like high school education, like knowing how to live, knowing how to make your life, knowing how to add value to other people's lives, and of course to be compensated in return. That is what I think the right charity is, which is why I never give charity in form of money or these things. If somebody is in need, if somebody is in a dire situation, the best I will offer him or her is usually a book, maybe a couple of books, or some form of information, because ultimately that person should understand that nature says you gotta have to work for survival. You're gonna have to work. You're gonna have to go hunting. You can't sit in your cave, wait for the other hunters to go out, risk their lives, bring this stuff, come back to the cave and ask these guys to give you some friggin' goddamn food. Just, people who are like, should be ashamed of themselves, by the way. People who ask for handouts. Like, whenever I see like a panhandler on the street or something, these guys should be friggin' fucking so ashamed of themselves for living like that. And more importantly, people who reward these behaviors by giving them these foods and, I don't know, money and whatnot, they all should be, ashamed of themselves, because they are promoting more losers and lazy people who have no, benefit to society to, walk around the world and just ask for handouts all the time. Because of this, I'm a firm believer in the fact that charity, if it's not educational, because I believe in free education, I believe in helping others to change their mindset. But if someone's life sucks, then it means that the way they think sucks, which means the only way to change their lives is to change their way of thinking. If you give this man whose life sucks money or food, this person keeps living with that mindset. Nothing will change and everything will get, even worse in the future, which is why I totally agree in that regard. Let's move on right now to Sinix here about the whole notion of equality and whatnot. So in the society, we don't have equality, and there are a lot of people around the world who just don't want to put in the hard work. They don't want to think smart. And you mentioned earlier, Sinix, that working hard isn't enough to become rich and whatnot. So why then do we have so much hatred towards those who are doing better than the others? And why do you think that certain governments tend to somehow tax the ones who are doing better than the others?
This probably is a game. This is a game that we've been actually involved in, and the governments are just playing with us. There are, lots of programs in the media that they're saying that, you can make money just easy. You can just sit on your couch and, have fun with your girlfriend. The money's coming into your account. That's all, some sort of nonsense. I think this is just a game. A group of people, who are smarter than others are sitting somewhere and planning for actually making profit for themselves. And this is the game that they have created for us.
So true. So true. Like these guys, they want to get votes and they promise people handouts. Like if you choose me, I'll take it from this rich guy and I'll give it to you, for example. And these losers, of course, will vote for that, right? So that's one of the major problems we have now with socialism, basically, all around the world. So back to you, Poujix, here. What can we do? Can we have just societies where people understand that equality is impossible and that people should be rewarded with their effort?
I lost.
One more time, let me repeat my question.
I couldn't hear your question.
Do you think we can live in societies that are just enough that they allow people to understand equality is not possible and people should work for what they want? They should not wait for equality to handle it.
At the end of the day, because of all the things that you and Sinix mentioned, I don't really want equality because that's not fair to the person that is doing the job. Think about it. Like you're handing out those monies. I mean, there might be very special cases, but I think there are very few of those actually that are in those, under those charities or under those government programs. The ones that are actually few, I'm fine with it if they're justifiable somehow. But then overall, you're handing the hard-earned money of somebody who actually worked for it and paid their taxes to somebody who not just isn't doing anything, but doesn't want to do anything. I do not see a value in that. I do not see, I think, as you mentioned, the best shift is to actually shift it into education, to actually help them understand how to be productive, to earn their own, teach them fishery. Don't give them fish. That's the idea that I support 100%.
That's right. So let's talk about that right now. How can we create societies where people who are doing better won't be penalized for working harder and smarter, and more importantly, people start helping others in the right way? As we mentioned earlier, the best form of charity is to teach the ones whose life sucks to literally understand that their life sucks because of the way they think. And the only way their life can stop being so miserable is for them to change the way they think, and more importantly, to change their plans of action, and more importantly, to friggin' take action. Don't be friggin' lazy and just take it easy all the time. So, what can we do? What can we do to promote the culture of, let's call this the neo-charity, if you will. Let's just coin the term right now. Copyright, by the way. So let's think of neo-charity here as a form of charity focused around helping people discover themselves, understand who they are, understand why they are not happy with their lives, and more importantly, to give them the right mental tools that allow them to take action towards their dreams. So what is your perspective, Sinix? How can we create societies where charity becomes more educational rather than just handing out friggin' food and money?
I think, first of all, we should think of social justice. You know, social justice is a concept of fair and just relations between the individuals and society.
That's right.
You know, this is actually measured by the explicit and tactic terms for the distribution of wealth, opportunities for personal activity, and social privileges. And you know, before we actually think of anything else, we should put social justice, you know, in advance as our priority, and then think of other tasks going on.
For sure. We need to have social justice. We already mentioned the fact that having social justice is required, but justice should exist for both sides. Because unfortunately, justice nowadays means the poor is poor because of the rich, and that is simply bullshit. Think of, guys, because, you know, we all have experience in education, so you understand that in a classroom, I mean, just imagine what happens if you are the teacher of a classroom, and then the principal comes and say, listen, man, come on. I mean, these three guys are getting A+, and the rest are all getting, I don't know, B's and C's and D's and whatnot. That's not fair. So you bring these guys down and increase their scores. That makes no sense. But that's exactly what we're doing in our societies. So social justice goes in both directions, basically. And that's all about the effort that you make and all those things. So back to you, Poujix. What about the neo-charity of education? What's your perspective?
Oh, I'm all for it. I mean, everybody who wants to basically, you know, distribute knowledge, help people to grasp and I'm not talking about knowledge, just math and stuff, which those are really good. But then I'm talking about, you know, as you mentioned, somebody's in my tutoring, I use my opportunity that they need this, to get their grades up, for example, or do better or whatever they want to do. And I don't just teach them math. I try to subtly, every once in a while, teach them something interesting about this world, inspire them, make them interested about the world around them, help them figure out what they want. Because let's face it, these are people who are the future. Very soon they're going to go to their universities, respective universities. It's best if they're in the field that they think they can do best and they're most passionate about. They can be more productive. As a result, overall, in a few years, we will have a much more productive society that everybody's contributing to a degree or other.
So true. Great point. Sinix, what's your perspective?
I think I forgot your name, man. What was your name?
Poujix.
Oh yeah.
You guys cannot believe that this guy just forgot our guest name right in front of us. That's friggin' unbelievable. Wow.
Okay, for a little bit of backstory, we've been sort of like best friends since high school, by the way, which was like 15 years ago or so.
Yes, after 15 years, he just forgot your goddamn name, man.
Come on, that happens to everybody.
Well,
send him some flowers. Send him some flowers.
I'm hurt. I'm hurt.
I used to call you with your nickname, buddy. Not your real name.
Yeah.
That's right.
True. He
That's
used
right.
to call me Jack. That's true.
That's
Anyhow,
right.
keep going. Sorry.
Maybe that wasn't appropriate to call your nickname. You know. Yeah. All I wanted to say was, I'm absolutely. I agree with actually. What was your name? Poujix. Yeah. with Poujix regarding this matter is absolutely right. And, the distribution of, wealth is actually very important. I'm telling you, because, if there is, a lot of financial, economic problems for, people, then you cannot control the society. You cannot expect them to actually act normally, and there will be consequences and problems. So what I'm actually insisting on is this actually distribution of wealth thing. I think economy plays a very important role in every individual's life.
Excuse me, Sinix, but isn't distribution of wealth exactly what we're talking against here? I mean, what does it even mean to distribute wealth? Isn't that the same thing, as socialism, where you just take it from the rich and give it to the poor?
Come on, it's not like that. You should actually bring justice to the society. You cannot actually talk about equality because there is no equality.
That's my point. You mentioned wealth distribution. Wealth distribution, as far as I'm concerned, refers to distributing wealth, which means you take using taxation from the wealthier and then you give it to the poor. Isn't that wealth distribution?
That's not what I meant. No, that's not what I meant. It's very complicated, and probably an economist best talk about it. I think the distribution. Oh, guys, are you there?
Yes, of course we're here.
Because somebody called me. Yeah. All right. I'm telling you.
That was definitely not us. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I mean, not. This is not literally distribution of wealth. You should have some plans for the economy of the country. And then those professionals are the ones who are supposed to do their best to make that possible. So, there should not be anything going on like the things that are going on
right now.
In, let's say, right now.
I think IRS is tapping your phone. They're just hearing what you're talking about, and I think that guy just called you for tax, right? You just want to take your tax right now. Think about it.
Can I jump in right here? Can I jump in for a second? I think a portion of what I think I can agree with with Sinix in sense of distribution of wealth is that although a lot of wealthy or rich people have really earned their money, I think we can all agree that there are a very good number of people that are maybe minority of the rich people, but still having a good amount of money that have earned their money immorally without morality, and the system allowed them to. So I think what I can agree with here in terms of distribution of wealth is to create better guidelines that prevents those immoral actions that produce wealth for some people that are actually basically being like the other end of the spectrum, actually taking from the society, not contributing to it and getting wealthy. So I think I can get on board with that.
That's right. Of course, it's true that you cannot make money this way. You're right. Come again, Sinix? I didn't hear you properly.
Yeah, I was saying that justice is the right tool for actually make such thing possible.
Exactly. Justice is very important. We all love justice. The fact that think of success economically as well as in other areas as a game, the rules should apply to everyone. Everyone should play by the same rules. That's the nature of all fair games. That's the nature of all justice. However, just like the fact that, soon there will be like a World Cup coming up, basically, and every single team will play by the same rule in the coming World Cup, right? Every single team. However, will every single team be the champion? Will every single team win the World Cup? I don't think so. We want the exact same system applied to our economies as well, where everyone is subject to the same rule. That is, the rich and the poor should pay, if there's supposed to be a tax rate, the rich and the poor should pay the exact same rate. And if the poor doesn't have the money to pay the tax rate, then he or she should change his or her mindset, add more value, and apply the same rules. I mean, the very system that we have right now, where the rich should pay more taxes than the poor, it's the very definition of injustice, man. I mean, it's just so unfair. You can't even imagine that one. So that is what I think should be done. Everybody should play by the same rules. And then they should actually be given the fair chance of playing the game. But of course, let's be honest, a lot of us, we tend to be lazy sometimes, and we're going to have to pay for that laziness as well. That's just the way it is. So overall, we're approaching the end of the show right now here. So let's move on now to Poujix. Poujix, what is your perspective? Before we go for the final comment, first give us some steps that we can take or the authorities can take to create societies with justice that do not use equality as a tool against, as a weapon against the wealthy.
Right, 100%. I think, as you mentioned, it can be literally a weapon against a society at large because wealthy can actually contribute as well. Anyhow, so steps would be basically, I would say we have to construct a system, as you mentioned, that everybody plays by the same rule. There's no leniency towards a group, and I'm not just talking about tax rate, but also if you're wealthy or you're playing by a different set of rules. So meaning that things are benefiting you just because you're wealthy, you're not even paying for it, but then you're playing by different rules. It's like buying the referee at the World Cup that you just talked about.
Exactly.
So that would be bad. Of course we want to prevent those. Of course that has to happen. I'm completely on board with that, and that's what we call justice. So that justice has to be done well, which is not. We're emphasizing so much on equality, which is actually the wrong thing, and we're not paying any attention to the justice.
Absolutely, man. So true.
Yeah, so we have to go about to make sure our set of rules in our society is just, and after that, as you mentioned, go about making the rules the same for everybody, and then, of course, I don't blame the people who are misguided or lost or are struggling. I'm telling, I've been there myself. Well, all of us, we're not perfect. I'm telling you, as you mentioned, Neo Charity, as you mentioned, help them. Give them tools, give them education, give them knowledge to grab themselves up. Of course, I'm on board with that 100%.
Exactly.
That helps me as a member of that society because that person is contributing to my society.
Exactly. And if that person, despite the education, cannot, get the fruits, then that person has a problem and he has to pay for that laziness and lack of motivation, obviously. Right. How about you, Sinix? Yeah. What do you think could be done throughout the society to promote this mindset?
All right. So let's make it philosophical a little bit. Some people think that there is justice, in nature, and then the universe actually is supposed to be working in a way that if somebody does anything wrong, then there's got to be some consequences for their mistakes and vice versa. But the thing is, that is not true. The universe actually does not owe us anything.
So true.
And,
so true.
This fundamentally makes, depression, for a lot of people to be what they're struggling with right now in their lives. So we should not actually, expect the universe, to actually have justice.
So true. So true. There cannot be, in that case, we could implement justice by allowing everyone to play by the same rule, and more importantly, by giving them, just for the same fact that we have this useless thing called high school for 12 years, which is mandatory for everybody, which we all know is completely useless. And people can grow up. They are forced to go through 12 years of useless education called, the K-12 and like high school and whatnot. And they graduate with fucking nothing in their head. So why don't we create something like that? Why don't we include some new courses in high school about these concepts? Why aren't we talking about success in high school? Why aren't we talking about happiness? Why don't we have a course called How to Make Money in high schools? Why don't we have a course called How to Become Happy? So I really believe that this should be included in, part of a mandatory schooling system where people understand that this is the way to be happy and successful. And if they're not happy and successful, it's their fault, basically, right? In that case, there's no one to blame here but themselves. So that's a great point. Now we're running out of time here. Let's go for a final comment. So Poujix, what is your perspective? What is your final comment?
Just to sum up again, we have to change our justice system, come back to help those who are not educated enough. As you mentioned, I love the idea of changing our curriculums in our high schools and in our grade levels to include something that teaches people how to be successful in the society that they're going into. I mean, obviously they have to know some basics of math, science, English, whatever they're learning, but then they also need to know how to grab to get the success that they want in the society that they're going to in the near future.
Exactly. Very important.
I'm 100% on board with that. Overall, I think we have to make sure that we understand that equality is not just, it's not fair.
That's right.
Equality.
Fantastic. Very well. And now let's move on to Sinix. What is your final comment, buddy?
My final comment, I told you, because I'm the best example of someone who's been suffering with depression. And I'm telling you, over the years, I had this notion in mind that, the universe owes me something.
Exactly.
And everything has to be equal. I don't know. There's got to be justice. And yeah, absolutely. But I was wrong. And, after some time I came into this conclusion that this is not true. And I got that. And as soon as I realized that, my life changed. My life changed for the best.
Exactly.
And now I have faced the reality.
Exactly.
And this reality helped me to go on with my life much better than before.
Fantastic. And I hope that a lot of us who are currently suffering and struggling will stop coming up with bullshit excuses as why I'm not where I am and I am here and this guy's there and it's because of this is unfair. And we all do what Sinix did. We take responsibility. We understand the reality for what it is, and we try to work hard and work smart and try to improve our knowledge to actually make better decisions and to have a better life. Now, that's all the time we have for, of course, and if you have any comments, please leave that on podbean.com. If you're on iTunes, please do us a favor and rate us there and leave a review if you could. That'll help us a lot to reach a wider audience. This was Beyond the Present podcast, and I'm Daniel Mulligan. Thank you very much.